Hey there, Knicks fans. I really don't want to ask how anybody's doing. Not today. It's your boy, Jonathan Macri, with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. Sitting down to record this episode at 3:33 p.m. on Wednesday, May 1st. But it might as well be 10 o'clock p.m. on Tuesday, April 30th. I'll take my inspiration from Benji's tweet from a little while ago for that one. Sitting here to talk to my buddy, Jeremy Cohen, who before I let him say anything, I just want to say, so Jeremy has a crazy schedule these days. I always have a crazy schedule trying to align our recording times, especially when, you know, the playoff series is going on. It's a little bit nuts. So we literally are shoehorning this episode into like a 42.5 minute slot that we have. Like, all right, we got to start by this time. We got to hard out by this time. So we literally sat down, the camera turned on. I have not said, what did I say to you before? I was like, hey, how you doing?
Wait a minute. That's, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, we've not exchanged 7 words with each other. And so this is going to be an interesting episode. So I'll start out by asking you, for all the folks at home, how are you doing?
John, it is, I'm better, but it was,
are you?
You know me.
I mean, that speaks volumes.
Look, you know me. I don't get too high. I don't get too low when it comes to the Knicks unless I really feel it. And I mentioned this before. I had tickets to Game 5, and I was excited at the prospect of being in the building for a series clinching win. And about with a minute to go, I heard someone behind me say to the person next to him, like, "Oh yeah, the Knicks haven't clinched a series at home since 1999. And now I said this on a recent pod. So, but I knew not to say it in the moment. Not that jinxes are necessarily a thing, but I thought maybe just don't say that. But whatever. And it slipped away. We don't need to relive exactly what happened. We'll probably get into it anyway.
Again and again and again for the however long we are recording today.
Yeah, I mean, the way I was obviously dejected and in shock at how it happened. And of course, the Knicks scored 5 points in overtime right away and relinquished that too. So it's not like we could just pinpoint it on one thing. The train home was frustrating because you're just sitting there collecting your thoughts, thinking, what did I just watch? I was celebrating what I thought was a series clinching moment, and instead it turned into something else. The good news that we all have to remember here, and this could certainly change, but the Knicks at this very moment are still up 3-2. They have to win one of the next 2. Ideally, they just win the next one and don't have to worry about Game 7, because I was ready to avoid having to think about this series at all. But in terms of last night, because I know you were able to, in the heat of the moment, voice all of your feelings. And as always, when the going gets tough, kudos to you to field other people's thoughts and feelings and process them and be able to deliver your own therapeutic session. I came back and I sat on the couch. I caught up on Hot Ones with Conan, so I got a few laughs out of that one. But I didn't really want to get over it. And then I got a text from my girlfriend, the one in the dancing video, and she said, like, "Oh, you want to chat?" And I thought, no, I don't want to talk to anyone. I just want to be sad. I just want to deal with it, process it, and move on. And we're chatting, and I'm like, "Look, I'm not going to talk about the Knicks. I'm not going to do it. I don't have the words. I don't have the voice. I don't have any emotion to do it. I'm not going to do it." She said, "Okay, fine. You don't have to talk about the Knicks." And then she said, "Well, at least tell me, like, why are you a Knicks fan?" And she's in social work. So I'm thinking, great. All right. Social work is clearly your bread and butter, and you're doing exactly what you, but fine. I'll indulge you. Okay.
I needed to talk to your girlfriend last night.
Well, clearly your conversation with your wife where she triggered you about a family pet, but we won't have to go into that. In terms of, she's asking me, she's like, "So why are you a Knicks fan?" And I'm like, "Well, they're the hometown team. I grew up with them. I don't know." It's like, "Yeah, but why? Like, what's the reason behind it?" And I'm thinking through it. And I'm like, yeah, players come and go, experiences, but why, after so many years of torment and torture and disappointment and false hope and all of this, why am I a Knicks fan? And what I came up with was, honestly, being a Knicks fan, it's a great story. Like, the loyalty, there's so much. We, at our core, we love stories and we love telling stories, right? Like, my grandfather was a rabbi. My dad is in musical theater. He writes plays and musicals. I do drone shows and create them and get to talk on a mic when you have me. Like, I get to do this too. Like, there's storytelling. It's core to my DNA, but also, who doesn't love a good story? And what I thought about it was like, this is a great story, whether it went in our favor or not. This was awesome. Like, to watch. If you take a step back and look at this series, it's been ugly with calls. I don't even really want to get into how annoyed I am with Joel Embiid and how much I respect Tyrese Maxey, but just kind of highlighting those things. This series, if you take that step back, has been fun to watch. It's basketball, but it's the privilege of us being able to say, as Knicks fans, look at this series that we're in. And I don't mean that as in like, we'll be grateful that you're in. No, screw that. We want to win. We want this team to win 4 games and then look to the next series and win that one. So it's not well, it's just great to be here sort of thing. No, it's just, this adds to the collection of horrible losses and great wins that we have seen throughout our lifetimes. And the funny thing is, John, I'm confident that what we witnessed last night probably won't even be one of the 5 worst losses I will have ever seen in my life, just because of how that's just the nature of sports. A colleague of mine said today that sports are the least most important thing in life. And it resonated with me. It really did. But the point of yesterday's game, what I keep going back to is this going to be a sentence or is this going to be a chapter? Because I think through Chris Herring's incredible book of Blood in the Garden. I just butchered that name, didn't I? But no, either way, Blood in the Garden, yeah. And just thinking through of some of the titles of chapters and pivotal moments, like Tyrese Maxey had an incredible game when he was sick. We're not going to really remember that game because they lost that game. He had an incredible game in game 5. We're going to remember that game because it was fantastic. But when everyone talks about Reggie Miller and the choking motion that he did, well, how'd that series turn out for them? But we remember the game, but the Knicks won the series. And that's the important part. So if you're feeling sad and upset still, whenever this podcast gets released, whether it is today on Wednesday or Thursday, and there's a game today, still 3 games to 2. What happens after that, I don't know. But obviously was hurt in the moment. Shout out to my girlfriend for making me feel a little bit better. Hopefully I can impart some of that onto other people. Maybe it makes some of you feel better. Maybe it doesn't. Don't really know. But that's what I'm left with until the Knicks are able to hopefully take care of business.
That was very eloquent, and certainly more eloquent than anything I'm going to be able to offer. It's funny that you just brought up 2 things that strike a chord with me. Your girlfriend asking you why you're a Knicks fan, and then somebody telling you that sports is the least most important thing in our lives, right?
Yeah. And
I hear those 2 things together, and you talk about like, is this going to rank among the 5 worst losses of like our lifetime? This may surprise you to hear, because I think you were, see if I get your age right.
It's just going to make things worse for you.
No, you were, yeah. I can't imagine I'll just ask, you remember the 2001 World Series? You don't, right?
I do.
You do? Oh, you 5, 4?
I was 6.
Oh, you were okay. So 6. Okay. It's 6 is like
6.5.
6.5. You're right on the borderline. That remains for me the worst sports loss of my life. And for anybody wondering, like, wait, I thought you weren't a baseball fan. And when you were a baseball fan, you were a Mets fan. My sports fandom has gone through, my baseball fandom has gone through many stages in life. I did grow up a Yankee fan. mostly because my biological father, shout out to Pat Macri down in Florida, is a massive Yankee fan. So I was raised a Yankee fan. It's the only thing I ever knew. And I watched that game with him in his apartment, and I don't have to describe that game for anybody who witnessed it. And then, and that was, very unique from anything having to do with the Knicks, because like the Knicks have never won, at least not in our lifetimes. And even people older than us, the Yankees, all they did was win. And so when they lost, it was like, wait, this isn't like in this moment with like the whole 9/11 backdrop, and like after how they won the games that they won in the series, that was the worst loss of my lifetime. And then I grew up a little bit, and at some point when I was, in my like mid 20s, and like life started to take me in different directions, where I just found baseball kind of to be on the periphery, and like I was more into the Knicks and I was more into the Steelers. It just kind of like fell by the wayside. And I became a Met fan because I married my wife, and she's like, become a Met fan or you could go marry someone else. I was like, sure. Followed the Mets, had a couple of nice years there, rooted for them when they went to the World Series 2015. And then we had kids, and now neither of us are fans of any baseball anymore because, again, there's only so many hours in the day. And I think about that periodically, specifically when I talk to you, but more when I talk to Andrew, because Andrew really has he is the trifecta. He has Knicks, Mets, Jets. It's almost the full Beningo.
Crippling.
Yeah, although he's a Ranger fan too, right, Andrew? I think he is on a call right now, so we can't even answer that.
He is a Rangers fan.
Yeah, so he got to see a championship in his lifetime, so that's nice. But he was very young.
5,
but like
6.
yeah, no, it's like it's not easy, and I hear the pain in his voice when he talks about the Mets and when he talks about my God, his Jets season, Jesus Christ. And I think back to like my own history with baseball, and I'm like, I don't miss baseball at all. I am so much happier it is the easiest decision in the world for me. Be like, well, you don't get all the highs of the baseball season, right? You don't get all the highs of the great wins and like the ninth inning comebacks and like, a no hitter, a big home run. But you also don't get any of the lows. Any day of the week and twice on Sunday. Maybe it's because I'm an old man now and I'm 41, about to be 41, and I have 2 kids and I have a lot of shit going on. But I'm like, you know what? You could take all the good times. I'm fine without them. Just leave me away from all the unnecessary stress. And eventually I got to the same place with football. Again, it was more of a function of Knicks Film School, to be honest with you. The fact that I just like dedicated all my time to the Knicks, and like Steelers fell by the wayside. I think it is what it is. And so it's so hysterical that your girlfriend asked you that question last night as I was sitting wondering to myself, why the fuck do we do this? Like, why do we bring this on ourselves? And I love the answer for you is it's a great story. That's like a cogent, like solid, reasoned, thoughtful answer. My answer sitting here right now is I don't have a choice. And it's because this was ingrained in me. It's the first team I ever rooted for. There's something deep within me that I'm sure a psychology, maybe your girlfriend could unearth, that it's a connection between my father and my stepfather, because like that 93, 94 season, especially, I would like watch games at the house of one dad. And then I'd go back home and I'd watch it with my stepdad. And it was this, this like kind of triangulation that I don't know. I could never, if I wanted to, if somebody paid me $1 million, don't root for them, don't pay attention to the Knicks anymore. Or $10 million, whatever. I couldn't do it. I wouldn't be able to. But God damn it, if nights like last night don't make me wish that I had that ability, because that is just like I've been existing this entire day. And I know this is not helpful for anyone listening, but I just don't know what else to talk about. I've been existing this entire day in a state of numbness. And like logically, I told myself all the things that you just said. They're up 3-2 in the series. Like they still have home court advantage. They lose game 6, series is still not over. Go back and win game 7. And like, yeah, they'll be a little bit more tired and worse for the wear, but like you move on, and like it's a new day, and we may not end up worrying too much about this loss in the grand scheme of things. I totally hear all of that, and yet it all falls as flat as a floorboard for me right now today. Even again, we're 3:47 p.m. and that's where I'm at. I'll say this. I'll throw it back to you. You know, my newsletter is for tomorrow because I couldn't bring myself to write about the actual game or like looking forward to Game 6. I went through some of the worst losses in NBA history. A Super Chat comment actually last night inspired me to do this in NBA playoff history. And I went and checked how those teams that lost the heartbreaking games went and fared in the next game. And I picked what I thought were, it's the 10 worst playoff losses that I could think of. Like I did a little Googling, looked at a few lists. I compiled my own list of 10. And the teams that had the heartbreaking loss went on to win the next game 7 out of 10 times. Which shows that like for as much as, you know, things can stay with us, a lot of times they bounce right off the players. And I did that list and I'm like, all right, that's a little encouraging, you know, but I don't know, man. It's just been a tough day and I don't really have anything. That's all I could say about it. It's been a tough day. That's all.
It's a gut punch. And even with the conversation, being able to reflect on it, I'm still not at equilibrium. And it sucks that Game 6 isn't tonight because like, all right, game time. Let's do it. You have to let it marinate, unfortunately. And it sucks. It absolutely does. And I don't want to be like, oh, look on the bright side, right? Like I want to be able to like, yeah, but that was devastating. I was reminded today that 11 years ago, to this date, was Game 5 of the Knicks Celtics series, where they lost Game 5 at home and could have wrapped it up. And that was, that was it was originally 3-1, was going to be a gentleman's sweep. And
it was 3-0, I thought.
3-0, but
they won the first 3 games and then they lost game 4.
But I'm saying they came back to New York to finish the Celtics.
And they did
in Game 5 and they lost. And then they won Game 6. And of course, it's in the forefront of your mind of another New York 3-0 lead and Boston coming back. Of course, this is Philly and it's 3-1. But it's like, okay, of course, Game 5, the day that I feel like this with the emotional hangover, it's the anniversary of the same feeling of damn. And but those teams are just vastly different. I mean, that's why when I see the stats about how the Knicks have fared in Game 5s and 6s all time, none of it really means anything to me because of how different this group is. It's more just like, all right, that's nice. That's history, but there's no connection other than the laundry to a lot of these teams. And I just, I feel better certainly about this group because of how resilient they are. They didn't wear all black dressing as if it were a funeral for the other team and then blow it. That's not their style. They're harder on they're harder on themselves than we are hard on them. That's the feeling. So I have no doubt that they can come back and have emotional toughness. It's hard for me to blame someone like Josh Hart. Yeah, make your free throws. Go up 4. Foul up 3. Don't have Mitch on the floor. Don't have OG in the corner on Tobias Harris. Like all these things where it's death by 1,000 paper cuts. And I don't see, and maybe this is just within my purview, I haven't seen a lot of people blaming Josh Hart for missing the free throw. And candidly, it's hard for me to do that when I look at how many minutes he played and just how exhausted he probably was. Jalen Brunson missed a few free throws that the Knicks desperately needed. But on the flip side, Tyrese Maxey, an incredible free throw shooter, missed 3 in one night. So it's all about give and take. The basketball gods giveth in Game 2 and they taketh away in Game 5. It's unfortunate to have been there in person for Game 5 where it seemed like a victory was there and it was just ripped away. But the Sixers in many ways earned it. I didn't have a problem with a lot of the officiating. Again, I mean, I think you could probably make an argument that Joel Embiid, his foul on Jalen Brunson, maybe flagrant one was fair. Maybe it was a little easy, but it doesn't matter because it didn't have an impact. And I hate watching him play basketball.
I know.
You're 7'1", the reigning MVP. Yeah. You finished top 2. You would have probably finished top 2, if not won the award if you stay healthy. There's so much talent, and your career is, as of this moment, known as a foul baiting player who cannot get past the second round. And that's a shit legacy. And that's something that he'll have to grapple with. And if it works for him and he doesn't care, then that's fine. But just from a pure watching standpoint, there was a moment where I was furious last night because Embiid launched himself and got the foul call, and then into a player. And then Brunson did the same thing and got hit like a rag doll, bouncing off, and there was no call. And this is nothing to say the officiating had an impact on the game, not saying that whatsoever. But there felt like a double standard. And I see people saying, well, when Maxey gets the same calls that Brunson gets, and again, I still resort back to the free throws per shot attempts. It's night and day between someone like Brunson and someone like Embiid. You're smaller, like there's craftiness. I think there's an art to what Trae Young does, whether we like it or not. There is an art there. If Windhorst wants to call it a dark art with Brunson, fine. But also that implies that that's so much of what he relies on, and it's just not his game. But obviously, we're going to view it through the lens of our biases. Sixers fans are going to be viewing that as Brunson being a foul baiting player. Embiid is going to be viewed at objectively. He is. We could say it's subjective from our standpoint. It's not. It's objective. Like everyone across the league knows this is what he does, and he gets away with it, and that's fine. Until it isn't. Until you're watching your team playing against that player, and you're frustrated as hell. But it's just taking care of business. I expect them to bounce back. There is an issue, of course, where, and again, this is not it's okay. It's just factual. They've played the last 4 months now, almost 4 months, without Julius Randle.
Yes.
They lost Bojan Bogdanovic.
Yep.
The minutes are catching up to them. It's not about Bogey being such a core piece. Like, oh my God, I can't believe he's missed. But I do think about when the Knicks needed offense, it would have been nice to have fresh legs. And then you don't have to play everyone so consistently.
Yeah,
and you space the floor. And when this team is shooting below 30% from three, having someone who's brought in to do exactly that not be there, it sucks. It just sucks.
It's tough for a couple of reasons, because even if you're telling me Bogey's playing, 12 minutes, right? That's 12 minutes that some other key player does not have to be on the floor. And if Jalen Brunson is on the floor for the majority of those 12 minutes, which he is because he's only sitting 3, 4, 5 minutes a game, at the very least, those are minutes where those guys share the floor, where maybe Bogey could do a little bit more of the heavy lifting and Brunson doesn't have to do as much of the heavy lifting. And then, that results in Brunson maybe being a little bit fresher down the stretch. Obviously, he made a couple big shots in the fourth quarter, made a couple big shots in overtime, but his numbers in the fourth quarter, and now overtime in the series have not been great. They haven't really been great for several months now. And that's, I think, because he's doing the amount of heavy lifting that he is. Did the Knicks have a choice? Yes and no. I mean, there's always passes you could make and there's always plays you could run. Are those going to be more effective? Are those going to be more beneficial for you at the end of a long game when a defense is just very locked in and like whatever, they're just going to switch everything? I don't know. I think reasonable minds can differ on that. You started off by saying like, you're not going to sit here and be mad at Josh Hart or mad at Mitch. I'm not mad at anybody. Like, I can't be mad at this team. I can't be mad at the individuals on this team. Because as we've said how many times this year, they've given you everything as a fan that you could possibly want. They have left it all on the court, even for as devastating as last night was. You're not going to find a game where players left it all out on the court more than these guys did. I mean, Josh Hart played every minute. Jalen Brunson sat for a minute and a half or 2 minutes. OG Anunoby sat for a minute and a half. Deuce McBride, if he was asked to, he would have played all 53 minutes. Mitch pushed himself. Everybody pushed themselves to their limit, and it's just, it came up short. And yet, I think the tough part about that, when I really start to think about it, and this is what starts to get me, concerned, worried, whatever word you want to say, it's a reminder that they need to And this has been the case for 4 months. It's part of why we're so proud of them. They need to max out their talent, right? To get wins. Like as much as any team in the league, as much as any team that got into like, the outer core of contenders here in the playoffs, where you're like, okay, maybe if a few things break right, like they can make a finals run. As much as any of those teams, more than any of those teams, they need to max out their talent, and any of these other teams need to max out theirs. Like the Boston Celtics, God knows, do not need to max out their talent to win. The Philadelphia 76ers do not need to max out their talent to win. The Cleveland Cavaliers have been doing the opposite of maxing out their talent throughout this first round playoff series, and have been doing that for the last several months. And they're a game away from reaching the second round. So clearly they don't need to max out their talent to win. Don't even get me started on the Bucks. We could go out west and say the same thing. The Knicks need to do that. And I think there's a direct correlation between that and the fact that this is the most even series of the first round. Not only in the fact that these games have been exciting, but these teams are separated by 2 points after 5 games. It almost literally could not be any closer, and you brought up like what happened with the refs in game 2, flip that on its head, and it's 3-2 in favor of Philly. Like obviously that went the way it did. You want to tell me that factored into Embiid not getting tossed from the game in game 3? Whatever. But these teams are even. Like they are evenly matched. And I think the thing that is maybe most unnerving to me heading into these final 2 games is the fact that the one advantage you figured the Knicks would have in every game that they played against the Sixers. And again, this is like, I know we're not Benji, we're not DJ. If you want the X's and O's aspect of this, go look at the wonderful Twitter thread that Benji put out today. It highlights a lot of different stuff that like the Knicks didn't do so great in game 5 and that they could improve upon in game 6. Ways to get, just go look at his thread. It's a really good thread. I'm not going to sit here and parrot what he did. I'm more coming at it from the perspective of like, what do we think we knew about this Knicks team heading into the series? We thought they were the tougher team. We thought they were the more mentally strong team. We thought when push came to shove and it was a big spot, they would be the ones to make the big play. Well, the other team, the Sixers, failed and could not come up big in the big moment. And the thing of it is, for 47 and a half minutes last night, that seemed like it was maybe going to be, if not the headline of the series, one of the headlines of the series. Because did the Knicks have their best game last night? Absolutely not. Turned the ball over 14 times, only got 6 offensive rebounds, gave up 12 offensive rebounds. Couldn't, like you said, they didn't shoot 30% from 3 even. DiVincenzo couldn't find the range. Hart couldn't find the range. Brunson shot under 50%. Like all these different things that they did not do, and they did poorly. And yet they survived it. Why? Because who was making the egregious errors down the stretch? It was Joel Embiid. Turnover after turnover. He was having a fourth quarter that was going to go. You talk about his legacy. This fourth quarter was going to be a legacy defining quarter for him. And then Tyrese Maxey saved his bacon. So you're like, well, why are you worried? Because Embiid's still Embiid. Well, now you got this guy, Tyrese Maxey, who I'm sure every Philadelphia radio station, podcast, whatever, is just gushing about, as they should. Because this guy has other ideas. And this guy is a different sort of beast than Embiid. And, you want to beat this Sixer team? You don't only have to beat Joel. You got to beat Maxey too now. And that's an intimidating prospect. I think they're going to have their work cut out for them in game 6. And then if it gets to a game 7, I'm sure they're going to have their work cut out for them in game 7. So if there was some level of certainty that I had, just based on, the history of these sorts of things, the fact that, again, only 2 teams that ever had home court advantage and went up 3-1 have ever lost a playoff series, I would feel better. And sitting here right now, I'm like, it's in doubt. And for that 3-minute stretch when you, I'm sure, like everybody else in the Garden, gave them a standing ovation, because you thought, correctly so. I went into the other room. I gave my wife a high five. You know, we thought it was done. We thought that the mountaintop had been scaled, and now it feels like you're back at the bottom of the hill. Can they scale the mountaintop again? Yeah, but it takes a lot of effort for this team. It always takes a lot of effort for this team. So I love the bravado I'm hearing from a lot of Knicks fans, and I wish I had some of that. I really do. I would pay good money for some of it right now. But I don't.
My buddy during the last minute of the game was FaceTiming his fiance in to watch it. And then when they tied it, I turned to him, I looked him dead in the eyes, and I said, turn it off. Just like enough. No, I hear you entirely. And what I keep thinking, obviously Tyrese Maxey has had an incredible series, but and he's been playing like Tyrese Maxey, but it also feels like Tyrese Maxey had to play like Jalen Brunson, and Jalen Brunson's been Jalen Brunson. And what I mean by that is Brunson is that guy, right? I mean, of course, would I say Brunson is, when healthy, the best player in this series? Probably not. It also doesn't matter because as of right now, that's where we're at. But Maxey has been phenomenal, to the point where I just can't help but respect the game that he's had, the series that he's had. And entering game 5, I believe the Knicks were 15-0 with Brunson and Anunoby on the court together at home. And now it's not undefeated. But think about what it took to get to that point. And it's easy to see a scenario where the Sixers take game 6 and then the Knicks get another opportunity to defend themselves on home court. And I think the fact that the Sixers just announced that the Brickin' for Chicken is going to be throughout the entire game is...
And the 2,000 tickets. You missed the
right.
That's the bigger thing to me.
2,000 tickets being... I missed that.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll. It's not really breaking news, but so I'll just read it. This is from Michael Rubin. Josh Harris, David Blitzer, David Adelman, and I just bought more than 2,000 tickets for Sixers Game 6. We absolutely cannot let Knicks fans take over our arena again, giving them to first responders, healthcare professionals, and other local Philadelphia-based organizations. Once we know they're legit Sixers fans and not imposters. So it seems like basically the owners of the Sixers bought all of the tickets on the secondary market and are just going to make sure that Knicks fans don't get them. Which I thought.
Can we talk about how sad that is?
Yeah, it's very sad.
Like that's pathetic. Philadelphia is a sports town, or so they claim to be, and now they have to guard tickets. And we can talk about purchasing power or anything of the sort, but like whatever. But the energy is going to be there. But I also know there are 3 players on the Knicks who are very comfortable in the city of Philadelphia, considering how they played college, right in that area. So you have to like your chances. Doesn't mean it's going to play out that way, of course. But if you're saying the Knicks have good odds of winning 1 out of 3, I like those odds. I do. Yeah. It's just, you certainly, my hope, of course, win game 6. So I don't have to think about game 7. So I have to switch up plans on Saturday because I don't really I want to keep my plans as they are, but life is what happens to you when you're busy making other plans, as John Lennon would say. So I don't know. It's always great to do these podcasts because it feels like therapy. Hopefully it feels that way for those listening, but it's one where I feel a little bit better about putting in the rearview mirror. Just getting excited about that.
I hope they're excited about the opportunity. I'm sure they will be. I'll say this. Like last night, I think one of the things that when I was doing the post game that shook me a little bit was the prospect of them being able to put this loss behind them. And that's the one thing where the research that I did today and looking at all the teams that had suffered, these heartbreaking defeats, coming back and winning the next game like so often, that made me feel a little bit better. And it was a reminder, that, and I what I didn't even include on the list, and I'm just thinking of now. You said it earlier, the Reggie Miller choke gesture, right? In in game 5, because the Knicks, correct me if I'm wrong, went on to win game 6 and game 7 of that series. Obviously, they won game 7 of that series because it was the 94 Eastern Conference Finals. But I think, they won game 6 too. So you could add that to the list too. I mean, it's just, I wish I had more conviction that they were the better team. That's the truth of it. And I shouldn't say that out loud as someone who does a Knicks podcast, because again, it's not a great look, but I'm just being honest. I wish I had more conviction, and it's tough when I look up. You just prompted me to look up about when you were like, Maxey's playing like Jalen Brunson. Leading scorer in the playoffs so far is Jalen Brunson. The efficiency isn't quite there, but he is the leading scorer in the playoffs. He's averaging 34.4 points a game. Second leading scorer in the playoffs, Tyrese Maxey, 32.4 points per game. Fourth leading scorer in the playoffs, Joel Embiid, 31.8 points per game. The next highest leading scorer for the New York Knicks, Josh Hart, 17 points a game. That ranks 33rd. And then after that, you got to go down to OG Anunoby, who's 45th at 14.2 points per game. Look, scoring isn't everything. Obviously, scoring isn't everything. It takes a team to win. And I think that's what a lot of Knicks fans keep going back to, is like, we have the better team, capital T team. But again, I don't want to repeat myself. That concept was what was shaken the most last night. Because if you're really sturdy, if you are really truly on sturdy ground, you find a way to win that game, and they need to shore it up. And that's just all they need to do.
But take a moment real quick to keep in mind, because I know your default is typically to overrate the other team and self-doubt your own team. Right. So, always. And I'm sure it's a conviction thing. In the heat of the moment, it feels that way. Like my confidence isn't really shaken. I'm just dejected from a game because the Knicks were this close to getting out of the series, and it's on to Indiana or Milwaukee. It's not like this is over. It's going to happen. I don't think it's over. Slope. Right. But to be clear. So if you don't think it's over, then there's a level of confidence that's in there, but your anxiety is pushing that down. Is that fair to say?
Here's where I'm at. They could absolutely win. Push comes to shove, I think they will win. Do I have doubt? Absolutely.
Of course.
And with 30 seconds left in the game, I had no doubt. So now it's like, so you know what it is? It's the last thing I'm going to say. I'll toss it back to you, and then we can get out of here, because we have to get out of here. Like, I use the relationship analogy in my newsletter today, to sports, right? It's like, you give yourself over to a team is like much like you give yourself over to another person, and you truly open your heart as like, look, you have the ability to absolutely destroy me if you want, but that's the only way that I could open myself up to the good stuff too. For that timeout, that one timeout, right, which would lasted about 3 minutes after Deuce hit the shot, I fully let my guard down. I fully, totally, and completely let my guard down, and I was like, I don't have to be nervous anymore. And so then, when the ton of bricks hit, you weren't like in, you weren't, it's like a boxer's like in ready position. I don't know what the fuck they call that, but whatever, where it's like they could withstand a punch. No, I was like a sitting duck, and that's why I'm still feeling it today. That's really all there is to it.
I get that. I was halfway through thinking, all right, what's the party going to look like outside of MSG? Yeah. What are we going to do? How are we going to celebrate? And it doesn't happen. It either has to wait, or something else that's more drastic occurs. You talking about the relationship in your newsletter, the similarity. It got me thinking about how in sports, when you think about it, there are probably going to be more downs than there are ups.
Yes.
It's like betting or gambling, right? The house always wins. There are 30 teams in this league, and there might be parity, but there's also the cream of the crop, and getting to that club and being able to have luck and injuries and success and all of these things, the odds are typically against you, even for the favorites. I know in theory, saying that their favorites would imply they have the best chances and all, and like absolutely. But there's also an element of you're one of 30 teams. You're probably going to be disappointed. And there's some teams in sports like the Yankees where there's a lot more success than there are failures. Now, with the Yankees, even though I have not been alive to see them finish a season under 500, I have also not seen them win a World Series or even go to a World Series since I was in high school. So there's give and take here. There just has to be. And the frustrating thing for me, again, going back to the least most important thing in life being sports, is this is an outlet, right? This sports, specifically the Knicks, an outlet. Doing this podcast, it's an outlet.
Yep. So
when things in my life are going well and the thing that's supposed to give me joy is the thing giving me the most anguish, It's infuriating. This is supposed to be the distraction.
That's what I opened with.
Right. And you're 100% right. So it just... what can you do in those moments? I
think you've come over to the dark side. No, stop talking. No. I hear you. It's very well said. It rarely is this bad. This is like this is pretty far down. Okay. On that note, I have to be at my daughter's school in 6 minutes, and I've still put on my shoes. So we are going to get out of here. Jeremy, any last minute thoughts before we leave?
We have a watch party on Thursday for Game 6. It's a 9:00 game. We hope people show up as well. T-Squared Social. Look, the good news: the Knicks are 2-0 in KFS watch parties in the playoffs. So. I understand it's a late game, but we've had success there. Let's try to bring success. Third time's a charm again. And let's have a great time. But if you're hearing this on Wednesday, it's game day tomorrow. If you're hearing this on Thursday, it's game day. Get ready. Turn the page. The Knicks will, so you might as well too.
Everybody show up. Need the positive vibes. I needed to talk to you today, Jeremy. Truly.
Likewise.
You get me as a Knicks fan. Better than
yin and yang.
I know. All right, and everybody out there, hope you enjoyed the show. And listen, still up 3-2, right? Still up 3-2. That's all we're thinking right now.
Let's go Knicks. Let's go Knicks.
Let's go Knicks. All right, we're gonna get out of here. We will talk to you soon. Show up to T-Squared Social on Thursday night, 42nd Street down the block from Grand Central. And if you dig the pod, give us a 5-star rating, write a nice review, all those things. We will talk to you soon.